going on, everybody? Classic Game Freak here,
And retired by choice?
back with another episode of the Classically Retarded Show. And
Yep.
how are you tonight?
Doing good, doing good. How about you, sir?
Oh, not too bad. Chilling out here with a beer, ready to get this show in gear.
Right on.
So, last episode we kind of dabbled a little bit about gaming from 1980 to 1985.
Yes, sir. That was the topic at hand.
And I gotta say, that was a freaking fantastic video you did for the actual show. Like, you went in there, edited it all for us. You did the whole thing. You edited the whole thing, and my hat's off to you on the editing of the video. I loved all the video content you put into that episode.
Well, thank you, sir. When you said that you wanted me to take the reins on editing, I figured, sure, no problem. It shouldn't be too hard. I've edited all the videos I've made for my channel, but I didn't realize at the time most of my videos are between 7 and 15 minutes. None of them are gone past an hour. And so as I was going through the video, or the last episode, I had all these ideas just thrown forth that just screamed, "We have to be in here! We have to be in here!" And so, after about 7 pages of notes of what I wanted to do, I had to kind of trim it down a little bit and be a little bit more realistic. And then, especially after all the editing problems I had, all the rendering problems, it became too big.
Well, yeah, it does become kind of a beast when you start even editing one of these episodes. That's what I found out the last episode I edited. It was like the more I started listening to it, the more I realized that I wanted to show video content, but that's also because I didn't want the YouTube video to be dry and just, you listening to it. I wanted it to be a visual experience as well. And, you went even above what I had done. And just, even stuff that I didn't think you would put in there, you put in there. So my hat's off to the Taco Bell commercial, the MC Hammer Taco Bell commercial. As you said, the Captain and Game Master trailer on there, even adding the No Nintendo sign, the Dr. Evil thing at the end. I could go on and on with that.
Well, thank you, sir. I do appreciate that. It was a long process, but it's also a very fun process to go through.
It for me, it's kind of it's relaxing, but at the same time, it can be agitating.
Yeah. My biggest hurdle was finding time between feeding children and trying to do household chores. It became a little exasperating, to say the least.
Right. I understand. It took me about 4 hours to do the episode before that, so I can only imagine what it was like for you to do that episode.
Yeah, it was fun. So I'm definitely down to do another one. Maybe not right away, but definitely one soon.
I gotcha. Well, yeah. I'm gonna have some fun trying to edit this one. The bummer part is we're recording this Sunday evening, and we like to try to get the episode out by Monday. And realistically, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to edit it in that time frame because of work and what have you.
Yeah, when we record later in the weekend than we originally planned to, it does throw a huge monkey wrench into the whole process.
Right. So I don't know if this episode will be later than our normal episodes, but I don't know. At least I want to try to match the quality of your last episode.
I don't know that far, sir. As long as we stay on point and don't name like 900 different video games and 1,500 different systems, we should be okay.
True. So you know what? Speaking of that, let's kind of get to our normal routine here. Might as well say what we've been playing. What have you been playing the past couple of weeks since our last episode?
Not a whole lot, really. Mostly the thing I was playing was the Wolf Among Us. I just finished that up last week, and I do have to say that was a very it was a phenomenal game. It's well worth the time I spent playing it, and anyone out there who hasn't played it yet, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that, and I kind of looked at it a little bit, and I'm really interested. I was going to buy it, and I don't know why I haven't yet. Now I can't because I just spent I think like $88 today on a couple of games that are coming out. So I'm kind of
Wow.
tempted.
Yeah, yeah, I know how that goes, sir.
And
Um, but no, I remember last time I mentioned it was based off a comic book, and for all you people out there wondering what comic that was, it's a comic called Fables.
Fables?
Fables, yes. It has many different story arcs, and it's got tons of different offshoots. Right now, I believe it's around issue 145 or so, and they announced that they're going to just issue 150.
Really? So I mean, like the main character, is it the same character in the comic books, or is it just based loosely off of it?
Well, he's one of the main characters in the comic books. It goes more into the other fairy tales, but he's also one of the main protagonists in it. So
Okay. I yeah, I want to play this so bad. I don't know what else to say about it, other than I'm trying not to go on YouTube and watch too many videos on it or anything because I want that experience to be totally fresh and don't want to spoil anything for myself.
right, right, definitely. I do know that they are coming out with Xbox 360 and a PS3 version. Either it's out now or it's coming out next month.
What systems was it on? Uh, just PC or?
Well, primarily it was PC, but they also did the like the Xbox Arcade and the PlayStation Store. But now you can actually physically go out and buy, a hard copy if you wanted to.
Okay, physical copies. I got you.
Right, right.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. You see, I'd rather have that physical copy. I just like physical copies. If I'm going to do digital on anything, usually it's just on PC and like on Steam.
Right, right. Yeah, I try to stay away from downloadable content that way. I prefer to have the hard copy because that's the whole great thing about collecting is being able to have the physical hard copy there in hand, sitting on your bookshelf, part of the collection.
Right, right. There you go. There's just something really cool about having a physical collection anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a dying breed.
Right. Like, I have a digital copy of Skyrim, and yesterday, like, I came across a copy for like $6 at a consignment shop in a town close to me, and I was like, why not? It was like the Legendary Edition. I don't know if the Steam code in it will work or not, but it's physical copy still. I had to have it, and gratefully, it was even on sale, so it was actually $3. But
That's a great deal.
yeah, well, even 7 wasn't bad. I was willing to pay it. And, I mean, it's just because I wanted that physical copy. It was cheap enough. Why not?
Exactly. I believe when I bought my copy, it was still pretty new, and I still paid somewhere around $50 for it.
Right.
But it's one of those games that I've played probably a good 150 hours worth, if not more.
It's a deep game. You can get lost so quickly on all the side quests. I love it.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it's totally fun.
And not to mention on the PC, you've got all the mods and everything. The mods make it just really, really worth taking the time out to go put them on there, enjoy it. Macho Man Randy Savage as the dragons. Every time he blows fire, yeah, he's like, yeah. So, I like that. I like the creativity that people put into that.
Oh yeah, I love ingenuity of people. Sometimes it can be exhilarating, sometimes it can be off-putting, but just to see that people are out there doing this is awesome.
Right. And it's kind of the same thing with like Fallout 3 and New Vegas and things like that. A big, huge modding community.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, have you been playing anything else, or has that just been it?
I finished that up, and I had been trying to finish up my Assassin's Creed 3. I played and beat the game a while ago, but I also went and bought the downloadable content for that, the Reign of King George, and I started playing it, got distracted by something bright and shiny, and haven't been able to get back to it. So just recently, probably within the last 3 or 4 days, I started playing it again.
Right. Are you going to go and play like 4 and then Unity, or I mean, are you just trying to get through 3 just to get through 3?
I'm trying to get through 3 right now, and I do definitely plan on going through Assassin's Creed 4. I'm a huge fan of the Assassin's Creed series. I mean, they haven't put out a bad one yet, in my opinion.
Right.
So I've heard a lot of great things about 4, and I can't wait to get into it. And but I just really want to get this downloadable content for 3 done first.
Right. Yeah, 4. I bought 4 some time ago. It was a little bit after I got my PS4, and as like you said, I got completely sidetracked by something bright and shiny, and uh, it sits there on my shelf to saying play me. That's the same thing with Watch Dogs too. It's the same way. I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me. I have such a huge backlog.
I totally understand, sir. I have a stack of games. I'm looking at them right now, and a lot of them I've played and beaten, or or just started playing, and I need to go back. I really need to finish some of these things. And like with Watch Dogs, uh, I bought the season pass for that when I bought the game, and I have yet to do any of the new downloadable content for it. So kind of excited about going back and doing that, but also at the same time going like, why?
Right. I've never done season pass until I bought the most recent Call of Duty. Got the expansion or the Atlas Pro Edition, which is like the collector's edition. It came with a season pass. That's the first one I've ever done, so I know that's just going to be a bunch of map packs with a couple weapons thrown in. I don't know. Maybe I should buy a game with a storyline with DLC. I know will be for Sting. How am I trying to say this? Jeez. Uh,
Words are hard.
Tonight, very. Um, it's a season pass that will bring single player DLC. There we go. That's a little bit more articulate.
Well, I don't know about you, but I would highly suggest Borderlands the pre-sequel. They already have a season pass going on, and they just released their first DLC for that. It's the Handsome Jack Pack, and
The the doppelganger thing.
yeah, yeah. So
Right.
that's just one of the 4 that they've kind of announced already, and I'm not a big fan of the fact that the season pass for that is $30 when season passes for the Borderlands series before is like $20. But you do basically pay for 3 and get 4 DLCs for it.
Jeez, I believe the Call of Duty was like $50, and I don't know. Season passes are getting a little ridiculous. I remember when they were like $20, $25.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But I don't know. It's either you just get the game by itself and play it through that way, or you go and buy the DLC immediately with the season pass, or you wait till later on when you get the Game of the Year edition or something like that that comes with the DLCs.
Right, and they will, especially with Borderlands. It'll
Oh
get
yeah.
collector's edition or a Game of the Year release or Mega Edition. They'll name it something quirky and funny. They will.
Oh, I know they will. That's their MO.
Everything is a joke in that game. So yeah, why not?
Yep. So if you're looking for something like that, I would suggest that. And if you get it on the 360, maybe you'll actually get on there one of these days and we can play.
Yeah, I really need to turn on my 360. I was actually thinking of doing that to play some Guitar Hero. I have yet to break in that guitar you sent me.
Well, whenever you do, sir, let me know and we'll get down and get funky.
Hell yeah! You play the bass then. You want to get funky?
Yes, sir.
No, I really do need to turn on my Xbox. It's probably got a bodacious update waiting for me. I'll have to wait 2 hours to get. Just ridiculous. I've been thinking of hooking it up right here at my computer so that all I got to do is just switch the monitor to the Xbox and play it like that. But I don't know. I've been playing the PS4 so much that I haven't really turned on anything else.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, Xbox 360 is kind of passe nowadays, but it's all I got right now, except for my other retro systems.
Right, right. Well, I understand that. I mean, they're still bringing games out for it and everything, so I mean that's great. It's not like its support is dying out yet. So even though the new gen consoles are out and been out for a year, they're still
Yeah,
making some pretty good games.
that's the one thing that I did like about the Borderlands, the pre-sequel, is it is only for PC, PS3, and Xbox 360. It's not for the new current generation, which I thought
Right,
was kind of cool.
right, right. They weren't ready to make that jump yet. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah,
That
but
ain't
now
bad.
now the next one in the series, Borderlands 3, that's definitely going to be next gen only.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, especially now that they come out with the pre-sequel just recently. It would be dumb for them to bring that game out within even 2015. I think I'd be shocked if it came out this upcoming year.
Well, they did announce, and it should be coming out either the end of this month or beginning of next month. There's actually from Telltale Games, Tales from the Borderlands coming out.
Yeah, but and I know that that's like it's the Telltale games, so it's like Wolf Among Us and The Walking Dead. But I'm talking about like a full-on Borderlands first-person shooter game.
Right. Yeah, they won't come out with a new version of that until at least 2016.
Right. So they got a lot of work to do on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's gonna be well worth it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back into the series. It'll give me a chance to beat one and two and try out the pre-sequel.
Right on, man. Right on.
So me myself personally, Call of Duty, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I love it.
Oh yeah, I forgot you got that.
Yeah, went got it at the midnight release. They were releasing it an hour earlier. I have no idea why. Uh, went into the GameStop. They started selling the copies about 10:40. I don't know what the deal was, but I was in there at about 10:20. I had my copy in my hand by 10:40 and was driving home. I was just like, okay, this is cool, and it turned out like I was really nervous. I was hoping that it turned out to be pretty good, and it has. It really has. It is probably my favorite Call of Duty game. And I mean, that's a lot of people might be thinking, especially the Call of Duty haters, well, that's like picking a favorite turd, but it really is good. I think a lot of people hate it because maybe they're just not good at it. I suck at the multiplayer. Absolutely horrible. And while I might occasionally just get mad about somebody shooting me, whatever, at the same time, I have fun playing it. There's sometimes, like today, I was listening to some kid sit there going, "Anybody have a mic? Anybody have a mic? Oh, we need to pick the Detroit level." And then everybody would like go and pick a random level. Oh, nobody wants to pick Detroit. I was busting up about that, so I still kind of get my fair share of laughs. I won't turn on my microphone or anything, but if it isn't because I want to actually go in and play the game and enjoy it, it's to listen to some of the banter in there, especially with like a lot of the kids, with people like adults telling the kids to shut up, and they're just like, "No, you shut up, your mom." You know, I have a
And
good. There's one way or another to have a good time with the game.
that's true. That's true. I think it's funny that's their big comeback. Yeah, mom.
Yeah, your mom. You want to know what I did to your mom last night? It's like, oh my gosh, shut up, kid.
Yeah, you're 8. Shut up.
Right, right. Um, and then other games. Like I've actually been trying to make some videos for YouTube, and that requires me looking at different games. I just posted a video on my Classic League. Geez, I can't even remember my own name. Classic
Wow.
Game Freak channel. I played a game called Dread Halls with the Oculus Rift, and I think you saw the video, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I saw like within the first 15 minutes it was up.
That game was scary as hell, dude.
Yeah, you're screaming pretty good.
Oh man, it is a different experience being in that Oculus Rift because it just things are there in your face, especially I'm gonna say it straight up. I was a little bitch in this game. Okay, I wussed out hard, and I I wish I would have completed the game, but there was like three things battling down on me at once, and it was just I don't know. Like I psyched myself up for the game too much.
Right.
So I played that. I'm gonna have to go back and play it if I want to make a video that finishes it. Uh, I played one last night called The Mental Torment, and it's like I don't think you can die in it or anything. It's just a bunch of stuff that's supposed to scare you and kind of give you a jump scare or two. And like it gave me some jump scares, but at the same time I wasn't really scared. I was just waiting for stuff to kind of pop up in my face. There's one point when the screen goes black for it felt like 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it light kicks back on and you're looking at a bloody wall. It was like, oh, it's a bloody wall. Okay. So,
Nice.
so I've been playing that. I'm getting ready to do a video to a game called Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Uh, if you haven't seen any Five Nights at Freddy's videos, watch those. This game is freaking great.
Is it? Because I downloaded it for my Kindle Fire, but it locks up after about 2 minutes of it. So
What?
yeah, I think maybe it might not be a compatible copy with mine. I might have to upgrade to the Kindle Fire HD or go iPad because there's not a whole lot of support for the Kindle Fire anymore.
Right. It, yeah, they have it on the phones and everything and portable devices, but I recommend it like on the computer. I don't know. You can you've got the monitor in front of you. Your attention is totally on the game, and these animatronic creatures popping out at you. It's great because you kind of know they're going to pop up at you. You know it. You can see it. You can tell, especially when your flashlight quits working, or you've got one animatronic that isn't susceptible to you hiding in one of the costumes or whatever, and jumps out at you. You know it's coming, but at the same time, you cannot brace yourself hard enough for the thing to jump out. Freak you out. It will freak you out because you set yourself up for it.
Right. Yeah. Well, you also seem to be a little bit more timid when it comes to these type of games than myself, at least, or some other viewers out there. You seem to kind of get more into the scare factor of these type of games.
Right. I love it. I love being scared. Like I think yeah, in our horror episode when we were talking about horror games, I talked about Dead Space and allowing myself to get scared. But I want to make these videos and give something for people to watch. I want them to see me kind of freaked out. Because to be quite honest, if I'm going to watch a video of a scary game like Five Nights at Freddy's, I want to see somebody jump. I would like to see a montage of jump scares, what you say, because in that moment you say some of the stupidest stuff ever. And so I like being scared because I want my viewers to enjoy what they're watching and get a laugh out of it.
Exactly. No, I know exactly what you mean. I just wish I can get scared at games like I used to when I was, way, way younger.
Right. Some people are just not as susceptible to it as others.
Right.
Like I said, I totally allow myself to. I lose myself in it. Like in the Dread Halls video, you see me like when I finally pull the headset off my head, you see me just kind of look over to my side and like I'm looking out the window of my living room to make sure there's nothing there. It's just it's nerve rattling.
Yeah, yeah. I can only imagine.
So anyway, that's the stuff I've been playing. A lot of just horror stuff because, like I said, been prepping for a bunch of new YouTube videos. So
Hold on.
there we go. So anyway, we talked about that enough, I think. What about you?
Yeah, we're almost 30 minutes into our episode here.
Yeah, yeah. You're griping at me on here. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Come on.
I'm just, I'm just, I'm just doing a countdown, sir. Let you know.
Oh, Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, okay. So tonight's episode, or today's episodes, this episode, number what? Number seven? Is this episode number seven?
This
Eight?
sounds about right.
Something
If,
like that.
if we're not counting all our other episodes before we started doing it on our channel.
Right. So we're talking about gaming from 1986 to 1990.
Yes, sir.
So I had all my notes prepped, and I was kind of carrying them around with me, and then I ended up leaving them at my in-laws. So I'm kind of flying blind here tonight, but you sound like you have a book prepped.
Pretty much. I got kind of into it when I started. When we started to decide what our next episode was going to be precisely, I kind of buckled down a little bit more and started getting more into the details of all the information that came out about these different systems. I mean, from 86 to 1990, there were quite a few systems that came out, more than I really expected or realized did come out. A lot of them I thought didn't come out until later on in the 90s, but some of them came out, right at the end of the 80s and whatnot.
Yeah.
So we have a few things to talk about, but some systems I'm just going to mention mostly because they had a longer lifespan than the years we're reviewing tonight.
Right.
Um, Now, I know we kind of talked about it a little bit. We didn't really go into a whole lot of detail, but we're thinking maybe, I don't know if next episode or the episode of that, just doing a focus of 91 to 96, the console wars.
Right. Well, did we decide if we wanted to do just Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo? Just go kind of give them a head-to-head?
I would really like to because, I mean, I don't want to get into it right now, but
Yeah.
there's a gold mine of information about these two systems, how they battled it back and forth for between those years. It was a virtual back and forth, like watching a game of table tennis. And
Right.
the advertisements during that time were great also. I mean, I don't know if you remember the advertisements for Sega, saying like Sega does what Nintendo can't.
Yeah, Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, and then you had. Well, I don't remember. I'm trying to sit here and think of any Super Nintendo commercials that was just trying to do that as well. I'll have to look and see. I don't remember Super Nintendo doing that, but man, Sega sure was.
Oh yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, Nintendo was the king of the hill there. I mean, when they came out in '86, they were the dominant force. I mean, the whole entire last half of the '80s and going into the '90s. So
Right,
they could kind of had to, pitch their flag and say, "Hey, we're here too, and this is what we got.
right.
We got
But
blast processing."
there you go. And they were big on promoting that too.
Oh yeah.
But let's back it up a little bit. Let's get out of our Super Nintendo versus Genesis mode. I'm about as excited as you probably are to actually do that episode.
Yeah, honestly, I've already got 3 pages of notes.
Holy crap! I have like no notes whatsoever. Geez, it took us forever to actually make this episode. I had that internet outage last night, which was total
Yeah,
crap. We
yeah,
couldn't do this episode last night.
yeah.
So I'm behind.
Yeah, well, when we were talking about it, I was like, wow, that sounds like a really great idea. So I started just writing notes. So I'm a dork.
Nothing wrong with that. It makes a great episode.
It will. I'll make a great episode. I don't care what anyone else thinks. It's a great episode.
It already is. It's not even out yet. We haven't even done it yet, but it's already a great episode.
It's already great. It's the best one yet. Emmy nominated.
Right. We're gonna win some awards. Maybe get 2 more viewers.
We're going to get a Webby Award. We're going to get probably 3 raspberries.
Hell yeah.
We're on it like vomit.
Like I said, 2 more viewers. It's gonna be big.
Huge, man.
So okay, to kind of recap what we talked about last episode, talking about Atari, talking about the game crash in '83, talked about E.T., we talked about Taco Bell, MC Hammer, talked about oh man,
Captain N.
yeah,
Talked
I
about
don't I don't know how we got into that either, because to be quite honest, that stuff didn't happen till later on in the late '80s, early '90s,
Yeah,
especially that Taco Bell commercial.
yeah. MC Hammer wasn't until the early '90s, but I think one thing was said, and the whole entire conversation evolved from that.
That's how we roll.
That
That's
is
how we
how we
do.
roll. Yep,
So, okay,
exactly.
so we did talk about the Atari 2600. We did talk about those plug-in portable plug-in devices that had the big guns on them,
Yep.
Wild Gunmen. Yeah, that was one great thing you pointed out. Back to the Future. Uh, Games like that. I wanted to talk about the NES, but you informed me that yeah, it didn't come out in the US until '86, so we had to curb it,
Yep.
and that's where we were. Now we stopped, and now why it's 1986.
It was 1986, and the musical stylings of Freddy Goes to Hollywood are still big business. But in January of 1986, a little system called the Atari 7800 came out. It was originally planned and announced for release back in 1984. They're actually one of the biggest sponsors of the 1984 Olympics, but of course the video game crash occurred, and the uh, Atari sold off pretty much their whole entire business, and they decided to shelve the 7800. It wasn't until a little company called Nintendo started producing a gaming system in Japan called the Famicom,
Right.
where Atari is like, you know what, we can actually probably do something. So the first gaming system to come out in America between 86 and 90 was the 7800. Now, the 7800, the great thing about it was backward compatible with the 2600 games. It was also backward compatible with 2600 accessories like light guns and controllers and any other peripheral that they came out with. Um, that being said, it also was not compatible with the 5200 games or any of their peripherals.
Now, why was that? Was it just a different processor was needed? Could it not process what the 5200 had? Was it different cartridge? What was going on?
Basically, the 5200 was a huge financial flop. No one had it. People who did have it didn't use it. They were more concerned with playing with the 2600 games because there were so many 2600 games out in the market and available that they just never played it. And the 5200 was not backward compatible with the 2600 without a docking base, kind of like what the Sega Genesis did with the Master System games.
Right. Holy cow.
Yep. So, um, in order to kind of circumvent that, what the 7800 did was it had its own board for its 7800 cartridges, but it also had the 2600 board built into the system.
Okay. Wasn't that the Atari 5200? Wasn't that the big clunky Atari, like bigger than the 2600, just massive?
Yeah, it looked like a bread box.
Okay. We're on the same page here now.
Yeah, it was a pretty big system, and it was kind of clunky. Um, and the great thing about the 7800 was it was affordable. It came out at $140, which at the time was pretty cheap for a system because a lot of the systems coming out were 150, 200, or more.
Right.
So to kind of get their footing back into the video game system game, they knocked the price down to 140. It came packaged with two controllers and a game, and yeah, it was compatible with almost every single 2600 game.
Oh, dang. Now I'm looking on here. It said at the system's launch, it had games like Pole Position 2, Centipede, Joust, Dig Dug. Now, the 7800 didn't it have the graphics that were close to what NES could produce, or were we still looking like blocky like 2600?
The graphics were still blocky. but they're much more improved than the 2600 graphics. Um, Essentially, like I said, that it was announced back in 1984 for an 84 release, and when they released it 2 years later in 86, nothing had changed. None of the hardware changed. Nothing. It was just basically the same exact system. They actually had a warehouse full of these 7800s that, because of the fact that the crash had occurred, they decided not to release it. So when they decided, okay, well, let's go ahead and do it anyway, they just released what they had.
Ouch.
Mm-hmm.
I
Because as we know, Nintendo, when it came out, their graphics were way superior, even though both systems were 8-bit systems.
Right. I mean, there's only so much you can do with a system that's already 2 years old. I mean, also they probably weren't too savvy to the NES's launch incoming. They did well. Then again, the Famicom did release earlier.
Yeah, the Famicom actually released in '83 over in Japan.
Right. So, well, they did know. I wonder why they didn't bump up the hardware. Why they didn't use the hardware like they should have.
I think it was basically to cut costs. They weren't really sure exactly if the system was going to sell as much as they hoped, um, only because they were one of the key factors to the crash of the video game system market here in America.
Right. I wish I could say that I remember playing the 7800, but I remember, like, I'm looking at some pictures of like the controller, and I remember playing around with it very little bit whenever I was way younger, but I don't remember any games on it.
Basically, like you said earlier about the games that came out with it, like Joust and Centipede and Pole Position, they were games that were pretty big in the arcade, but they were games that were big in the arcade 2, 3 years prior. So they'd already fell way behind when it came to releasing their system and their initial lineup of games because they're already 2, 3 years old.
Yeah, and you can't have a winner like ET twice.
No, no, you can't. Try as you may.
You can't recreate that magic.
Oh no, no, you can't. That magical spark that every little boy and girl got Christmas morning, opening up that Atari 2600 cartridge and slapping it in, and 10 minutes later going, "This is the worst piece of shit I've ever played in my life."
Being blown away. Come on now. Why be negative about it? Man, that was the best game ever.
I know you're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm hating for no reason.
what a hater.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, I wish I could say more on the system, but I don't remember it all that much. I don't even think, like, it's been some time since I've even seen one, like, personally. Like, I would like to get one just to play it, but I can never find one.
Right. Well, apparently they're pretty collectible, especially if you can find any of the games that were announced for release and were never released. Those go for anywhere between $1,000 and $1,200 each.
Oh, geez, no wonder why I don't ever see one in person. Oh well, maybe I won't try to get a 7800 in the games for it.
Right. I don't think it'd be worth it.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, you can pretty much emulate everything that they released on it, so there's no real point in having it unless you have an exorbitant amount of money and just want to blow it on a system.
Right. Ah, I think since I started collecting video games, the big system I wanted to get was the Sega CD, and that was one that kind of just eluded me for a while. And once I got that, it's like, okay, I don't really want to get any other system. I have, like, I don't need to go after any other system. So
Right, right.
I I don't have that want and desire and that push to get a 7800 like that.
Yeah, I definitely would love to get my Sega CD back. I had one probably right at the very end of the cycle when they said, okay, we're not making any more, and they marked them down to like $20 each. I was able to get that and a handful of games for 99 cents a piece, so I was like, oh, hell yeah, right. But then,
Jeez.
but then about 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, okay, I don't really play anymore. It's just collecting dust in the garage, and I went and sold it way too cheaply. And now I'm like, well, damn, I wish I still had it.
And now that you found the YouTube community and started collecting, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It's crazy because I had the Sega Genesis, I had the Sega CD, the 32X. I had God, what was the name of that huge ass light gun they had? Not the Enforcer, but the other one.
the Super Scope.
No, that was for Super Nintendo.
Oh,
The Minister.
oh, okay, okay. So for the Sega,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I gotcha.
yeah.
Holy cow. Uh, well, geez, yeah. I was glad to get a Sega CD again, and I'm working on that 32X, but I don't want to pay a bunch for it either. So
No, no. There's no need to. I mean, like I said, back in like '96 when they discontinued those things, you could pick them up brand new in box for $20.
right, but now since people have gone a little gung ho as far as collecting goes, the prices have jumped up a little bit.
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A-
Yes, sir.
As with everything else. so
Yeah, that's true.
Atari 7800. What other consoles on your Magic list there?
Well, before I go too much further, they discontinued the Atari 7800 back in 1992. So,
It went that far?
yeah,
92?
yep, 86, 92.
Wow. I wasn't even thinking about Atari at that point.
Nobody was. That's why they stopped making them.
Yeah, but I mean, for them to last that long, I mean, you never saw Atari 7800 cartridges at your local rental store or anything like that. It was always NES, 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 NES.
Oh yeah, because they think that at that time they had like an 80% market share. So they're pretty much the number one gaming system around. So it's more more I don't know. I guess it made more sense to go ahead and have a stock of NES games in your store instead of a stack of 7800 carts.
Right. As you said, it didn't sell well, so people's not going to really have that console in their household.
No, it sold horribly and it just wasn't worth what they were trying to sell. So it went away.
That's a shame.
Well, they did it to themselves, and they thought they could recapture the market share that they had back in the early '80s, and they obviously couldn't do it.
Right. Oh man, that's still sad though. That it sounds like it was an okay system. It's just like you said, game crash, can't recapture the magic twice
Right.
or three times. I mean, the 5200 wasn't really.
No, that sold even worse than the 7800.
So there you go.
Yeah,
They were trying to find magic that wasn't there.
exactly. But also in the same token, Nintendo when they came out, they had a very strict third party licensing contracts. Like if you're a third party gaming developer and you sign with Nintendo, you were not allowed to release that game for any other system for 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. So imagine if you're a company like I don't know, Konami, who released Metal Gear Solid on the NES back in '88. You would have to wait until 1990 to release it on the 7800. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that is a long time.
Exactly.
I'd be mad as a developer. Uh, but then again, with the NES, it did really help them, making sure that they weren't putting out really stupid games, at the same time, pornographic games, things like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The contracts are like you can only release 5 games per year on the NES. The NES had 100% control over approval of the game. Um, you had to spend at least $10,000 in orders for your game. God, what else was it? It's a huge list of things that you could and could not do. Nintendo was the only company that could manufacture the discs or the carts. Um, yeah, is a lot of things you had to agree to in order to produce a game for the NES. And you're
But
only allowed 5 games per year.
yeah, so if you had a development group that was really good at making games, you better spread them out.
Oh yeah, you had to, because if not, then you're gonna be SOL.
Right. So speaking of NES, yeah, just I don't know how we're not making a full episode, this whole episode, just on the NES. I think we were like, well, that whole episode is going to be NES, and
Yeah,
we're trying not to,
yeah.
but
But
I know,
NES was just a powerhouse back in the late '80s, early '90s. Still is today. I mean, if you say Nintendo, everyone knows what you're talking about.
yeah, and it's usually, hey, I got a Nintendo, yeah. I mean, if you're old like us,
Yep.
then you know what we're talking about. We're talking about the NES. We're not talking about the Wii U or 3DS. Kids, younger kids are like, Nintendo, yeah, I have a Wii U.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, 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 not Nintendo Wii U. I'm talking the NES. Huh? It's an NES. I
Yeah.
know. I know. I worked with one guy. It was about this time last year. I was playing Contra on my phone, and he's like, what's that game? I was like, you don't know what game that is? And I mean, the music's so recognizable. I was like, you don't know what game that is? And he's like 23, right? Maybe a little
Right.
younger. And I was like, you don't know? No. It's like, you don't know at all? No. Contra? Oh, never played it.
Oh
My
wow.
my eyes almost bugged out of their heads. Out of their heads. Wow. Oh, I'm tired. Excuse me. Jeez, I'm gonna take a nap now. My
Wow.
my eyes almost bugged out of my head. It was just I couldn't believe it, and then it made me. It's one of the rare times I went, holy crap, I'm getting old.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that. I mean, if you talk any kind of retro gaming to anyone in their 20s, they look at you like you're smoking crack cocaine. Like
Right.
if you said like, oh, the Atari 2600 was the biggest gaming system ever, they look at you like, what? 2600? What's that?
What are you talking about? Yes. And it's I'm talking about a console, not a number. Jeez, what the hell?
These darn whippersnappers.
Yeah, like well, 30 years ago, back when gaming was good, it wasn't a it wasn't about story and graphics. It was about the gameplay, and it was about getting the highest score.
Yeah, it's about beating Mike Tyson.
Oh, jeez. Yes, yes. Oh man, we gotta bring that up. Gotta bring up a couple of our favorite games in the NES era. I know we gotta try to keep the topic down so we can still pull more in there.
Yeah, because if we want to keep this at an hour, we only got about 10 minutes.
We ain't keeping it an hour. You know we're gonna run a little over.
We're gonna run way over, and they're gonna like it too.
We're not gonna run way over, but we can sure try to stuff all this stuff in here and make it good.
All right,
Uh,
let's try then. The
Mike,
NES came out in Japan as the Famicom back in 1983. The first NES system here in America was test marketed back in October of 1985 in New York and Los Angeles. Um, Now, my next stats are a little weird because I couldn't find any definitive exact answer. I found where they said they did another test market run back in February of '86 with a national release in September of '86. I'm not sure 100% how accurate that is. That's all I could find about the release of the NES, which is kind of weird if you think about it. The number one selling video game system in the last 30 years, and there's hardly any information about the release date.
yeah, that's a confusing one because even when I was doing research to put it in our last episode, I was a little kind of thrown off.
Right, right. No, I definitely know that the test market was in '85. and the release was in '86. I mean, I remember seeing the commercial for NES when they were showing like the Rob the Robot. I was like, oh, that looks so awesome. I want one so bad.
Oh, dude, I think everybody wanted one of those. It was like, wow, the thing actually moves on its own. What?
Mhm.
That it's alive. That's so cool. It
No,
it was so 80s.
it didn't even last very long. This lasted about I think 2 years. The Rob Robot bundle pack was around for, but
And you could only play one game with it, couldn't you? Or was there more?
there was one official release and there was another one announced, but it never got past a certain point in the development.
That's sad. Poor Rob.
Yeah, poor Robbie. Now, when the NES first released, there was 18 games you could buy at launch. They were 10-yard fight, baseball, Clue Clue Land, Duck Hunt, Donkey Kong Jr. I'm sorry, no, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Excite Bike, Golf, Gyromite, Hogan's Alley, Ice Climber, Kung Fu, Mock Rider, Pinball, Stack Up Tennis, Wild Gunman, Wrecking Crew, and Super Mario Brothers.
Right. All the black box games.
Yeah, the Black Label, Black Box games. And
Those
the thing about those games is, I don't know if you remember, or I'm sure you do, because you've been buying the Atari cartridges. If you look at the box art on the Atari games, they show like this flamboyant artwork that has nothing to do with the game. Whereas these Black Label cartridges, they showed exactly what the graphics were in the games.
right. The old Atari cartridges. It was I loved them. I love them simply because they show so much going on and what the game is trying to show you what it's doing. But I mean, you're getting these blocky, these blocky images. But that's what they want you to believe it is. Whereas, yeah, Nintendo showed you, like Super Mario Brothers. It showed a picture of Mario jumping. And, golf was what it wasn't even Mario, was it? Mario was in golf, right?
No, not until later. He did a NES Open tournament golf
That's
game.
right. But yeah, Kung Fu, you saw the little Kung Fu dude crouching down. Yeah. So I don't know if that was a good idea, but then again, it showed you what you were getting.
Yeah, I think that's what the point was the Atari era. They showed these very cartoony, exaggerated representations of what they wanted the games to be. But when you popped in a Frogger, it didn't look nothing like what you got in the cartridge box.
Right. And I mean, that's either very smart or very stupid. It could be both depending on what context you want to put it in.
Well, a lot of experts did say that that was one of the key factors in the downfall of Atari back in '83. Was it was falsifying what kind of game graphics the system had and what kind of graphics you would get from these games that you're purchasing for $50, $60.
But you see, then again, you kind of have to be a very ignorant person to look at one of those boxes and be like, this is exactly what it's going to look like when I pop it into that my Atari 2600. The same system that ET's on.
Right. But you also got to think that during that time, the late '70s, early '80s, you're coming out of the boom of pop culture where there's truth in advertising. So when these Atari games started coming out, there's like the first like exaggeration of what the actual product was.
Right. And falsifying what it's trying to show you. And people are still like, I'm not saying our viewers are ignorant or anything, but I mean, just recently, it just reminds me of Red Bull. Red Bull went under a class action lawsuit because apparently Red Bull doesn't give you wings.
Wait a second, stop the presses. They don't give you wings?
Apparently not.
Oh,
So,
oh,
you
those
know,
bastards.
they've been telling us that since what, 2002, and you know, now it's coming to fruition that yeah, it doesn't give you wings. Well, it wasn't just that, but mainly it didn't give you the pep like in the commercials. Doesn't give you wings. They had to settle it by giving 10 people a $10 voucher to buy two, Red Bull or whatever. So if you're ignorant enough to believe that a drink is going to give you wings, and we gotta say they were a little ignorant back in the day buying these cartridges too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that lady who burnt herself on that McDonald's coffee. It's coffee. It's hot.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I do not want a cold coffee unless it's iced or a frappuccino or something like that. I'm sorry. If you're going to get a hot coffee from McDonald's, at that time that was all they had as far as coffee went. They didn't have this mocha frappuccino bull crap.
No, there's no such thing.
So it wasn't going to be, ooh, that's cold.
Exactly. But that was the kind of world we lived in.
Yeah, still
Now,
do to a degree.
now with the NES, there was four different models or four different packagings available. You had the deluxe set. That was the one that had Rob the Robot. It came with a zapper, two controllers, and two games. It came with Gyromite and Duck Hunt. And that sold for $199.99.
Jeez.
Then you had the basic set, which came with no games and just one controller, and that was $89.99.
Oh,
And
that
then
ain't bad.
what was that?
That ain't bad.
Yeah. Then they had a variation of that where it was came with one controller and Super Mario, and that was $99.99, which is a great deal if you think about it.
Right, and that would have probably been inflation wise. What are we looking at? Maybe 150, nearly $200 by
Right,
today's
right,
standards.
exactly. And then the next one they had was the set that I actually purchased was the action set that came with two controllers, one zapper, Duck Hunt, and Mario Brothers, and that was for $149.99.
Huh. See, I didn't even I don't think I've ever known that they came out with different bundles like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They came out with several different bundles. I mean, there's probably I think I saw around 8 or 9 different bundles, but there were always at one given time 4 bundles on the market.
Jeez. And I was thinking, well, about when the PS3 first came out and everything, or they started coming out with different bundles for the PS3. It was like, wow, this bundle thing's a good idea. Man, why haven't they done this sooner? I just never paid attention.
Right. All you knew when you were a kid, like I want a Nintendo. That's all I want.
Exactly. And like I wouldn't have minded having Rob the Robot or anything like that. And since I got into collecting, it was like, oh, they got different bundles. What? They had a Rob the Robot bundle, and it's just wild. These
Yeah.
ideas have, like, with the Atari 7800 being backwards compatible. It's like they were doing it back then. Why can't we be doing it now?
Well, they were for a while, but then they stopped doing it because it's just too expensive for the companies to be doing it.
Right, and then you got your hardware restrictions and whatnot.
Right. I mean, like the PS2 was backward compatible with PS1. I think PS3 was backward compatible with PS1 and PS2 for a little bit. And then they stopped the backward compatibility for PS1 software.
Right.
So I mean, they were doing. I don't think any of the newer systems are doing any of the backward compatibility whatsoever.
I don't think they are. Like, I want to say the PS4 is no. I never mind. No, PS4 I do not think is backwards compatible with like the PS1, which is kind of stupid in my book because I mean, PS1 backwards compatibility was all software. It was just emulating everything basically. I mean, yeah, you throw in the game, but it wasn't any of the real hardware that needed to run it. It was all just a copy of Bleem.
Right, right. I think it's just more or less a time thing and a financial getting the codings putting into the systems.
Right. As well as, well, we can put Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation Store. People will buy it. They don't need it. They got a copy of it on PS1. We'll let them break out the PS1.
Exactly. I mean, it's all dollars and cents nowadays. Why
Yeah.
package it into your system when you can sell it for $4, $5 on the PlayStation Store or the 360 Live Arcade?
Right, right. So, yeah, man, there was so many great games on the NES. We're getting kind of back to it now. My first memory, like with the NES, I remember my uncle had gameplay recorded on a VHS tape. And if you people don't know what a VHS tape, it was this cartridge like thing that had magnetic tape and it would imprint the information on that magnetic tape.
Yeah,
uh,
that
and then give you an image to display on the TV. No, he had a videotape and it had two games on it, and I remember watching this video over and over and over again because I wanted to play it so bad. I wanted to see it. The graphics were amazing, and that was uh, Contra and Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
those are two excellent games from that period.
Right. Contra really blew my mind. Like, I had to play it. I knew I had to.
Yeah, Contra is one of those games that if you didn't play it, then you're a loser amongst your friends.
Well, it still took me a while, but I mean, oh man, just the sights and sounds of that game, the music, the fact that you weren't just hearing blips and bleeps anymore. It was full music. There was sound effects. Each weapon you picked up had a different sound to it. Just everything. It was almost sensory overload.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're coming out of the Atari 2600 era, where everything was bips and bleeps and bloops.
Right, and things like that.
Yeah,
I can remember combat.
yeah, yeah. Those sounds will be embedded in my brain for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I could definitely point out some games. Now, I will admit, E.T. did do like the E.T. theme song, which still it was using a lot of different tones, different beeps, but at least they did it.
Yeah, that's true. They tried.
I think I think like that's whenever it really games started trying to get a little cinematic because my favorite NES game of all time is not Mario Brothers or anything like that, but it's Ninja Gaiden.
That was a good one.
That is a really good one. That's a really hard game, really good. They were introducing cutscenes, and I mean, while it didn't tell a great story, at least it was there. And for me, it was just so cool. I was playing a movie.
Yeah, a very watered down, condensed version of the movie, but it is still there. It was a precursor to what a lot of the games are nowadays.
Right. It's all about the story and graphics now and not gameplay. So, how about you? Earliest memories of the NES?
Well, I remember at the time, I guess it was about 1988 or so, and I was still rocking the 2600 pretty hardcore. But a neighbor of mine up the road from me, he had gotten a Nintendo, and the first two games I ever played for Nintendo were Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda.
Uh,
And
Still,
playing those back to back was just an experience. I mean, it was insane the type of graphics that you can get and all the little hidden things like especially in Mario Brothers, like the first level when you get that one up mushroom, or when you go to World 1-2 and you can go to the warp zone. I mean, those are great little additions to a game. I mean, you couldn't even fathom that kind of thing 5 years before that.
right. Everything seemed like it was so, like there was so many secrets, and like I remember having to get Nintendo Powers to help me find those secrets. But even like I think I found this one on my own. The when you're about to get through one of the levels, I can't remember what level it was, but there's two turtles coming down those steps, and if you hit one just right, you can keep jumping on the shell of that turtle and giving you just I don't even know how many lives, but it got to the point where it wasn't a number of lives, it was a sign. Like there was different insignias that started putting on the screen because it was just kind of wigging out a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that level. Yeah, I remember trying so hard to get to that point, just so you can do that and get the timing just right, so you can get the coins to add up, so you can get enough extra lives on that level.
Yeah, and especially when you did something like that in front of your friends, you were walking around like a boss.
Yeah, you were the shit.
So you kind of had the bragging rights there, just or if you could get through the game, and you were faster at it. Ninja Gaiden for me, I was proud that I could get through that game. My friend couldn't do it, like one friend in particular. I used to go to his house all the time and play it. He could never beat it. I could. He'd always complain at me for being able to beat it.
Yeah, I had the same thing with Double Dragon.
Oh, geez, that is a difficult one.
Yes, sir. And I was able to say, "Hey, I beat Double Dragon last night." That was a great feeling to tell my friend that. He's like, "Wow, you beat Double Dragon? That's impossible." I'm like, no, it's not. It just took a little bit of time.
Jeez, yeah. My hats off to you on that one. Double Dragon is a difficult one. I don't think. I think I beat it one time, one in my entire life, and that's it.
That's all it takes. Beat it once and you're God.
But still, I need to go back and recreate that. I don't know. I might need to break that out and try it out again. I know for me, one thing that I could brag about that my friends couldn't do was beating Contra without the Konami code, without continues.
Wow, that's a pretty good achievement there, sir. Because I needed that Konami code.
I did for the longest time too, but I remember thinking, I want to challenge myself. I want to do this without the code and without continuing. And I was able to do it, I think one time, one or two times, and then after that I couldn't do it anymore. Now, I kind of proved my mettle on my channel, on my Classic Game Freak channel. I went back a few months ago and played it. Like I was recording it. I thought I was recording, realized I wasn't recording the first portion through, but I was like, ah, crap, no, I want to show this. But from there on, I was able to get through. The extra lives helped. I think I was on my last life, and I beat it, and I was just like overjoyed. Like that whole sense of just giddy joy came over me. You can hear it in the video. I'm just like, yeah, I can't believe I did
Yeah, I remember that video.
it. So there you go. Um, but so many great games on the NES. We might end up having to do just a episode of this on the NES alone.
Yeah, because there's just so many different things. I mean, just pure memories alone. I mean, I know I was rocking the 2600 for a while, but I think the first system that really got me really into gaming would be the NES. I mean, I remember I had a stack of games. Hell, I remember buying the Power Glove when that came out.
It,
I had one, believe me. It sucked, but I had one.
I had gotten three. Now let me tell you why three. Because the first two didn't work, and neither did the third one. So my mom and dad took it back finally and got their money back.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I had to do too, because that thing, it was the biggest piece of shit when it came to a peripheral for a gaming system. But oh my god, did it look cool. That was
Oh,
probably one of the coolest looking accessories for any game system ever. Even today, it's still one of the coolest gaming accessories ever.
oh, it's so bad.
It is so bad.
Yeah, man, they really tried to add in that movie, didn't they? The Wizard.
Hey, you know what? I love that movie so much. I was so excited for when Super Mario Brothers 3 came out, just because of that movie.
Well, that's why I wanted the Power Glove. Was the Wizard?
Oh yeah, me too.
Oh,
Every kid in America wanted a Power Glove because of that movie.
and it turned out to be a royal piece of crap.
It was horrible, dude. I tried for hours trying to get that thing to work properly, and I could never get it to work right.
And well, here's the thing. Like, I don't think I even learned from that personally. Like, couple weeks ago on my Facebook page, I had my picture set up as a little stick figure kid. Said I'm a consumer whore. It's off a cartoon on YouTube called Rejected Cartoons by Don Hertzfeld, I think it is. And I saw that. I was sitting there laughing at it because I was like, I cannot help myself. I have to buy this new stuff that comes out, even if it turns out to be crap. I was looking at the Oculus Rift, for instance. That is a big time peripheral. It's not on your hand this time, it's on your face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Power Glove is the Oculus of today, but I'll say the Oculus is at least good and works.
Right. Yeah. That was just so horribly designed. I mean, do you remember the setup where you had to set up these like the three bars alongside the TV?
Yeah, and you had to kind of put something to weigh them down. They were all wired together. It
Mhm.
was, oh man. Oh, I want a Power Glove just for my collection, but I don't ever want to use the thing.
No, it wouldn't even be worth using. Just something to put on your shelf and say, "Look what I got." That's pretty cool, huh?
And right, and you know what? I wouldn't even want to wear the stupid thing because that thing is probably so funky from God knows how many hands have been in it.
Not like that, but I mean, it was built for a 12-year-old. We're in our 30s, and our hands. I hope, at least in your case. I mean, I know my hands growing.
Right, yeah, yeah. I don't have small hands.
Yeah, I don't think our beefy, burly hands are gonna fit in a power glove, no matter how much Vaseline we use to get it on.
Oh, that's just nasty.
That's nasty.
But okay, so yeah, let's make an episode out of it here in the coming weeks. Let's do a Nintendo episode. Why not?
We can
Eh,
definitely do it.
yeah, oh man, that'd be another one we'd have a blast with.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving on, like we'll make a list of games we'll talk about because I've got plenty. I know that. I know you. I have no doubt that you do too.
I might have one or two. No, yeah, of course I do. I mean, I think at one time I had over 75 NES games, and that was back when NES was still big.
Oh man, I was one of those that had all like every console that come out, but only had like a game for each one.
Oh, not me. We weren't so privileged to have one of every system. It was you pick one system, that's your system for the next 5 or 6 years, and then you just load up on games on that one system.
Right. So, what other gaming systems, consoles do you have on your list there?
Uh, I have the Sega Master System.
Okay.
That was first released in Japan back in 1985 as the Sega Mark III. It was redesigned, renamed the Master System, and released in America in mid '86. Uh, um, it was first developed in Japan as the SG-1000, which actually the SG-1000 was a precursor to the Master System, and it
Right.
came out the same day as the Famicom did in Japan. So it was kind of already day one battling for dominance.
Wow. See, I didn't even realize that the as I grew older and everything, I didn't realize that like the Sega Master System was in competition with the NES. I got to the point where I started hearing that there was a certain amount of people that bought a Sega Master System, and there's a certain amount of people that bought the NES, and it was always like, "Well, I had the Master System." I was like, "What? Really? You didn't have an NES?"
Yeah,
It
it's
was weird.
crazy. I
It
knew
was
I knew one person growing up who had a Master System, and I was like, "That's just a weird looking system, dude." And he's like, "That's cool, man. The graphics are so great." And in reality, it really the graphics were a lot better than NES. But I mean, like I said, I knew one person out of I don't know 75 people I knew growing up who had one. So
yeah, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that I did too. And that was my first run with Outrun and like Spy versus Spy and
right,
games
exactly.
like that. So and I always kind of felt like he was a little odd for not having an NES when all of my other friends had NESs. I was
Right.
just like, you have what's it called? A Sega Master System? It's kind of lame.
It's funny too because I mean the Master System was designed. I mean the hardware was designed to be more powerful than the NES, and it really was. But the thing that kind of kept it down a little bit was the fact that when it first came out, they were $200, where the
Ooh.
NES was, 149 for the big action pack. So
Now, did they come out with any bundles for it or anything like the NES did, or was it just one straight up bundle and this is what you got?
it was pretty much just one bundle. It wasn't until way later where they tried to kind of scale it back. Like they took, like when it first came out, it was $200. It had two controllers, um, and two games. Then they scaled it back to where it was one controller and one game. But by that time, it was already too late for the Master System.
Yeah, you get your death knell early. Man, that sucks because it really is a pretty decent system. Now the we were talking about game boxes and so on, and I gotta say the Sega Master System game boxes sucked.
Um, I don't think I had any experience with a game box for the Master System.
They okay, they're like the Sega Genesis boxes. You know, they're the plastic boxes, but they always had white with kind of a blackish grid on them. And I mean, it would say what the game was and maybe one little graphic, and that was it.
Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
one year, my mom and my dad for Christmas, they bought me a whole bunch of Master System games for my Genesis because they didn't know the difference. And I remember getting these games going, wow, these graphic boxes suck.
Yeah, I if I was going to buy video games, I wouldn't know which one was a better one. I would, you know, the way they advertise those, they could have done so much better with them, but perhaps it was because of those super creative boxes that Atari had come out with that kind of overhyped their game that they wanted to go for a very like minimalistic look.
Yeah, yeah, I remember distinctly seeing the game box for Rambo, and like I said, it's like graph paper background and like a cutout of Rambo. It's like, wow, that's kind of weak.
Yeah, it really was lame, and to this day they are still very unappealing to me. Like I always come across Sega Master System games out in the wild, and even the cartridges themselves. Once again, the cartridges don't even have any graphics on them. Instead of a white background, it's black with a red graph paper. Uh, uh, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? The graph. Yeah, the red lines.
Yeah,
And then it says what it is, and that's it. There's no graphic. You're just going by what you read.
exactly. Those game graphics and the graphics on the cartridges were just really weak for, especially when you look at the game boxes for the NES or any other systems that came out during that time. The boxes were at least more appeasing when it came to other systems.
Right. You at most of the time had colorful graphics. They might have shown gameplay, might not have, but at least the back of the box showed what the gameplay looked like. I mean, you get something like Contra, and you've got a character that looks like freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger on the front, and somebody else there, big old rifles in their hands, something creepy in the background, you know, at least you're seeing something there, and it's like, oh, okay, it's two guys taking on these aliens. Well, yeah, you get the gist of it. Okay, fine. But I mean, geez, a picture of Rambo.
Yeah. Well, I
With,
guess they figured Rambo would sell the game itself, but
yeah,
they could have jazzed it up a little bit.
yeah, they could have gotten a little creative with it, and they really kind of missed their mark on it. And perhaps that would have helped them sell a little bit better than the NES did. I don't know, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, again, they kind of fell into that same pitfall where NES was saying, hey, if you develop any games for us, you can't release the same game for another 2 years for any other system. And of course, the Master System was one of those systems.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that. We just
Yeah.
talked about that.
Yep, yep. So so Sega, they had to produce a lot of their own games, and they really didn't produce as many games as Nintendo did.
Right. See, that's a shame. Like you said, it was a little bit better than the NES, but it was just underused.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably why the system ended up being stopped by 1992. And the funny thing is, the last game that they released was Sonic the Hedgehog back in '91, and that is like the biggest game that come out for the Genesis.
Right. So kind of, and for the Sega Genesis, I know it wasn't a release title, but at the same time, it was in the Sega Genesis early days. So it ended on that note and started their next chapter, I guess you could say.
Pretty much. I mean, the Genesis when it first came out came bundled with Ultra Beast, which to me is one of the greatest games ever made.
Rise from your grave.
Rise from the grave. I love it. Every time I hear it, I get excited. I get chills. I'm like, oh.
Power up. Oh man, yeah, I remember falling in love with that game and then getting really annoyed with it and then not playing it anymore.
Yeah. It was one of those games that it got old really quick,
Yeah, yeah,
but it was
because
so much fun.
it was annoying. It was one of them really stiff side-scrolling games. Just it has a
Yeah.
charm because I mean, you think about it back in the day, it was like, holy crap, look at these graphics.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, uh, okay, so what other consoles? I know we're trying to kind of get through them here a little bit. I know we're running really past our time, but
Just a little bit. Um, let's see. I got a few more. TurboGrafx 16. Now that's a system that I don't remember seeing or hearing about until the 90s, but apparently it came out in 1987.
really, it came out that long ago.
Well, it came out in '87 in Japan, and it came out in 1989 in America.
Okay, that sounds more right. Okay, yeah, that sounds a little better for me.
It has the distinction as being the first system released in the 16-bit era.
I can't say I've played. Well, I have played one, but I can't really remember any of the games on
I,
it. So
I
I
remember
don't.
Chuck Rock.
Chuck Rock.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Now, like the graphics, were they on par? Were they? I mean,
The TurboGrafx, it was pretty much like playing an arcade machine. I mean, that's the kind of graphics they had.
right.
So, I mean, it was great that way. But now, um, the system sold for $399, and
No.
it came with no games.
No.
Yes.
Good God. No wonder why we never saw this thing in stores or anything.
Oh, that's nothing. You should wait to see what I tell you about the Neo Geo.
Oh, I know all about the Neo Geo.
Oh, do you?
But now, the Neo Geo, when did the Neo Geo actually come out?
August 1990.
Really?
Yes, sir. Yep, it came
See,
out in 1990, but it cost $649 when it came out.
yeah, because you were getting pretty much an arcade machine.
Yeah, it pretty much was. I mean, it pretty much used all the boards from an arcade machine. But I mean, who in their right mind had $649 to spend on a system, and then you had to spend another $200 per game?
Yeah, yeah, and as you said, it was practically, an arcade game in every game. To this day, they still stand up too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the graphics on those things are great.
Anybody who's played Metal Slug or Samurai Showdown, uh, can attest to that. Metal Slug is still a very strong franchise that really never changes its formula, and for good reason.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you got something that works, why mess with it, right?
Right, and I mean, especially you said it came out in '90, especially for it coming out in '90. Uh, the animations for the characters were just fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, It's definitely one of those systems that it had the graphics, it had the balls about it, but I mean, just for the price, it wasn't worth it. It didn't sell well because of the price, but I mean, it's highly collectible now. I mean, a lot of people are looking for those machines, looking for those games.
Right. And the thing about the Neo Geo games is you can actually, if you get a Neo Geo arcade cabinet, they literally take the cartridges from any normal Neo Geo system. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you get that Pick 5 or like the Pick 4 arcade cabinet, you're putting four of those cartridges in there. You can swap them out, and that's why, you were able to put a memory card in from the Neo Geo,
right.
or like they had, like you would look up at the little marquee and they'd have four different slots with the different games that were on it, and you could switch it up.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
really neat.
Yeah, and it actually was the first system to have a removable memory card system with it.
See, and I wish I would have gotten a memory card because that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. They were produced until 1997, and the last official licensed game came out in 2004, and that was Samurai Showdown 5 Special.
Those are great games.
Yeah.
Great fighting games. Um, well, I mean, I'm surprised they didn't do anything. Well, then again, I don't think they could have. Like, it kind of reminds me of NBA Jam. When that first came out, you could put in your initials, set up a little passcode, and it would track your game history. So you could see how many games you won, how many you lost, and so on.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
I thought that was cool.
It was real cool.
Have you ever played this before? Yes. Put in your password. Hi, such and such. CGP. you know, it's like, oh man, that's so cool. It actually saves my stuff. Heck yeah.
Yeah, that was a really cool feature of that game. And I think the same company that produced that game produced God, what was it? I think it was an NHL game in the same vein. Almost want to say it's called NHL Jam, where you had
Really?
it was like 5 on 5, and you had the big head mode, and you had the on fire moves and all that same stuff. And I don't think it was as popular as the NBA Jam series, but I know with me, I enjoyed it very much because I'm a pretty big hockey fan. So that game kind of spoke to me a little bit more than say NBA Jam.
Right. I don't think I've ever seen that or been wise to it. If I can remember, I want to look that up for sure. Because
I definitely remember it being out for the PS1, so you might be able to find a copy pretty cheap on the PS1.
oh, I gotcha. Was it an actual arcade game or?
I believe it was. I mean, I don't remember playing it in the arcade, but I think I remember seeing it in the arcade.
Because I would love to fire up the arcade cabinet and see if it's on my list in there.
Right?
Because whenever I got that thing up and running, I had gotten a file with thousands of ROMs in it. So it's like games that I didn't think were there are actually there. Like there's one like Tattoo Assassins, which is a game that was never released, but like three or four cabinets were released, and it's like a super rare game. And sure enough, I have it on there. So if this game, this NHL Jam or whatever is on there, I'm hoping it is. I'd like to try it out, play it
It's,
old school, play
it's
it
pretty
arcade.
fun. I mean, if you're a fan of the NBA Jam series, you'll be a fan of this also.
I was a big fan of the NBA Jam series.
I
So
love the fact about the NBA Jam games that you can like put in the codes and get like Hillary Clinton or the Beastie Boys.
yeah, I was always a big fan of Sub Zero. I was Sub Zero and Raiden. I was on a Mortal Kombat kick. I didn't care about Chelsea Clinton or anything like that. Beastie Boys, yeah, I don't remember the Beastie Boys, but I then again I do remember hearing about them being in the game. I don't
Yeah,
think I ever knew how to get them.
I remember getting my Sega Genesis magazines, and every so often they throw the codes in there for different characters, and I would have to run to the nearest arcade so I can throw them in there and see if it worked.
Right. I remember my mom and dad would have to go shopping. I'd go right to the magazine section with like a pen and paper and like writing down cheat codes because I'd always be like, "Mom, let me get this magazine." No, they're $5. So like, I mean, there was always that occasion when she would, and I'd be like, "Yes, I have all the codes right here." Mortal Kombat 2 move lists.
Oh, yeah. Those were vital. Those
uh,
those move lists. I mean, if you're trying to figure them out on your own, you might come across one every once in a while, but to get the list right there and just slaughter your friends is excellent.
right, especially the fatalities. It was like, how did you do that? What was great about it for me is the move lists were that was my business. Like I bought the magazine and I would literally write out lists like 3 or 4 at a time, and friends I knew were playing it, I'd be like, "Hey, I'll sell it to you for $2."
That's
And I made a few bucks doing that. I'm not gonna lie.
awesome.
They'd give me some lunch money or something like that for a full-on Mortal Kombat move sheet. And I mean that thing, I remember filling that thing out to the brim. There was like no more white on that piece of paper on each side when I'd get done with it. So
That's
you were
really
getting
good.
quality stuff here. Quality.
Hell yeah.
All right, so Neo Geo, what else is on the list?
Um, just want to talk about this real quick. Don't want to go into it too much because I know we're going to actually doing a whole episode on just this by itself. But the Sega Genesis, um, first released here in America in 1989, while the Master System was still a pretty big system, or for Sega, a pretty big system. It was first released in Japan as the Mega Drive in 1988, so it had a pretty quick turnaround for a system. Because I mean, if you notice, a lot of the systems over in Japan took 2 or 3 years to get over here.
Yeah.
Where the Genesis is like a year turnaround, so it wasn't too bad. Eventually, the Genesis had a gaming library of over 900 games, which is pretty close to what the NES had by the end of its life cycle.
Right.
Um, of course, everyone knows it was part of the console wars between itself and the Super Nintendo,
Oh yeah.
and eventually got discontinued in 1997. So it had a nice 9-year run.
Man, 97. I remember in about 96, that was about when Earthworm Jim 2 and Vector Man came out and all that. So, uh, yeah, I can remember playing some of those games that came out way later in its lifespan.
I was a huge Genesis fan. Like I went from NES to Genesis because
Really?
of, oh yeah, because the advertising alone. I mean, if you think about it, the Genesis came out in '89. The Super Nintendo didn't come out to '91, so it already had a 2-year head start of Nintendo. Nintendo was still doing NES stuff.
Right.
So,
You
so
were already. Go ahead.
Sega was in the thick of it. They're already selling their 16-bit systems, their 16-bit games, and just waxing the Nintendo Corporation when it came to the 16-bit revolution.
Right. People were already playing Golden Axe and Space Harrier and Afterburner.
Right, and in 1990, I think, was when they released Sonic the Hedgehog. So it became one of those things like everyone had to get the Genesis to get Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. And that's where Sonic became straight up Mario's rival as far as the console wars
Oh yeah, yeah,
came to be.
definitely.
So, but we don't want to get into that. I know we got a great episode for that setup.
Yeah, yeah. But I just wanted to touch on that because it did come out during that time frame, and it was definitely worth at least mentioning. Now
Oh yeah,
the last thing I have on my list is not a home console, but it came out during the same time as these consoles were coming out, and that's the Game Boy.
oh yes, good old Game Boy.
Yes, sir. The Game Boy came out here in America July 31st of 1989, um, and it stopped production in March of 2003. Believe it or not.
2003. No kidding.
Yep, yep. They milked that as long as they could.
Now, this was the original Game Boy we're talking about. It wasn't like the Game Boy Color we're talking about or anything like that.
No, this is strictly Game Boy original. I include no information about the Game Boy Color or any other Game Boy versions. I try to keep it to just the one system that came out during that time frame.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Now, um, that information is also more toward the Japanese side because they kept the production going a lot longer than it probably should have.
Yeah, especially with the fact that the Game Boy Color was out and being sold and just bringing out some pretty decent games.
Well, what I've noticed from a lot of these systems is even as a system is still in production, they'll release a new system and they'll keep that first system going as long as they can make it go. I mean, because if you think about for example, the Sega, it stopped production in '97, but by '97 we already had the Dreamcast. No, no, we had the Saturn, and the Dreamcast was about to come out.
Right. Well,
So
yeah. Well, if you look at it, I know I'm pretty sure certain on this, but they had the Game Boy. During the Game Boy's lifespan, we had the Game Boy, then it went Game Boy Color, which
yeah,
was what, 90, 96, 97?
yeah, I think that's
That,
about right.
yeah, that's just my guess. I'm not even looking at my computer. I'm not even sitting at my computer, so I don't know. And then the Game Boy Advance came out in like 2002, 2003, somewhere around there,
Yeah,
because I
right
can
around there.
yeah, I can remember in 2003 I had started a call center job, and with my first paycheck, I remember that very first paycheck, I went right over to the Walmart and bought myself a black Game Boy Advance with the Fantasy Star collection.
Nice.
So that means the Game Boy was still alive. Now, while it wasn't alive and well, it was
Right.
still running. They were still producing for it. That's insane.
Well, also during that time, they had the Game Boy Micro, Game Boy Pocket. There's, I think, one more variation of the Game Boy brand before the Advance came out.
Yeah. Oh
And,
man.
they also had the, I don't know if you remember this, variation of the colors of the Game Boys. Like,
Oh,
you know how for years and years and years it's just the plain, like, NES gray, and then all of a sudden you can get, like, purple or yellow or pink or blue.
yeah, and that was really the start of Nintendo making colorful consoles. Like I'm thinking marketing ploy. It still works today. So I mean, it's a ploy, but it's a ploy that works.
Yeah,
Like
definitely. I mean, yes, it's great to get a system, but if you can get that same system in a different color that you can't get anywhere else, why not, right?
yeah, and then if you get the whole collection, you get to kind of show that off. I know they did that with the Nintendo 64.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
Oh man, they're doing that with the 3DS now. It's like every month they're coming out with a new bundle pack. It's like they had a Pokemon one, like the Pokemon X and Y. They had like a Pikachu 3DS. They've got the. Oh, I'm still mad with them on this, but the NES controller.
I know. I want to get that one so bad.
I want it, but at the same time, I don't because I know the new 3DS is coming out sometime this next year, and it's like I'm like, why are you doing this? I just bought the Zelda one about a year ago when
Right.
A Link Between Worlds came out. I don't want to buy another 3DS. I have two already.
Well, nobody wants to buy a new one, but if you want that new variation, you're gonna throw down that $200 right away.
Right. And here's the deal. Within 5 or 10 years, it's going to be a straight up collector's item that can fetch $500, $600.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how these things work. I remember like the first Game Boy Color I bought at a yard sale for a quarter, and I was surprised that it even turned on and worked. Now, you know, if you were to go buy a 3DS, you 2 years down the line, you're not going to be buying a 3DS, you know, at a yard sale for a quarter or even $20. You're going to be buying it online for three, four, $500 because it's now that big of a market where people are thinking everything's a collectible now.
Right, and you have everywhere and everybody and their mother looking at eBay first before they go to try to price their stuff. So you
Right.
go into a Goodwill and it's like, oh well, we want $40 for, or yeah, it's $40 for Mario 3 because oh they say it's a rare game, but within reality they have looked at somebody who's overcharging like out the ass for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's the fact that people are overcharging or if people are out there overpaying.
Yeah, it's both.
It's
It,
just it's messed up. I remember when I first started using eBay back in 2000 or 2002, I think. No, no, about 2001, I think. I was able to go on there and I collect vinyl also, just because I like vinyl. I think it's cool.
yeah.
And I was buying all this punk rock vinyl for $2 or $3 a piece, and I was like, oh wow, this is so awesome! I'm buying all this really great music for really cheap. And then fast forward 5 years, the same album I got for $2, I'm now spending $10 for because that's what's going for on eBay.
Yeah, when in reality it's not fully worth that. I mean, if you want it bad enough, you're paying that, but at the same time, it's not worth that. It's
Exactly. It's just people. Everyone's got the internet now. Everyone looks on the internet for everything, so they don't need to say, "Well, I really don't need this anymore. I'll sell it for $4." No, now it's like, "Oh, this guy sold this one for $25. I can probably sell it for 22, still make a profit, but undercut this guy."
right. That's lame. It
Yeah, it is. It really, really is.
and that's why a lot of people are getting out of collecting and things like that. Like a lot of people that I met in the YouTube community whenever I first started collecting games and everything. They had massive collections themselves and was willing to trade different stuff. It was really cool watching them grow their collections. Now most of them are just like, no, I sold my collection or I don't collect anymore. It's just, oh man, it's getting harder and harder to find any deals, and that's why.
Yeah, that's the sad thing too, because that's what makes the gaming community so much fun is being able to say, hey, you know what? I went to the Goodwill and I found this really cool game for $3 or $4. But
Right.
it's getting harder to do that, you know. I mean, I haven't found an NES game at a Goodwill or Waterfront in almost a year now.
Jeez. Is that where you found that mighty final fight?
Yeah, I actually found that. That's like my probably one of my best deals I ever found. It was that and just a plastic bag of random NES games, and I paid like $10 for it. And Mighty Final Fight was in there, and a box copy of Tetris. And I was like, wow, this is a great deal. I gotta get this. And
Yeah.
since then, I haven't found a single NES game, not even like a random like Super Mario Brothers slash Duck Hunt cart.
Wow. See, I haven't been looking hard lately. Like, I mean, I've got gaming places I can go, but they're picked through so much. It's just sports titles almost exclusively, and it's just it's kind of annoying. It's a little frustrating, especially when you can't go to different towns and look or anything like that. But if even if you did, they'd be overpriced out the ass.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right now we only have, I think, in our area, and I'm talking like 30-mile radius, where we have like two gaming stores, and they're just so overpriced. It's not even funny.
Yeah, it's that's sad.
Yeah,
So,
so I do most of my pickups via the Goodwill or Waterfront, or sometimes the pawn shop here in town has some good stuff. But yard sales are getting harder and harder to do too.
yeah, well, especially with colder weather coming. I know you live down in Florida, so colder weather means it's like 60, 70 degrees.
Hey, it might be 60 degrees right now, but yesterday it was down to 32. So
Oh, well then, okay, you're having an unnaturally cold winter already.
yeah, oh yeah, it's been pretty crazy around here. But no, I mean, our problem is we have one or two people who do game pickups as their profession, and they go in there like a vulture and just pick everything. Doesn't matter what it is, they just pick up everything. So there's nothing left for us, non-professionals who do it for fun, and it's impossible to find anything anymore.
That's sad. And it'll I know it'll get to where it isn't such like a hobby because everybody's leaving it. It'll become a thing where it's like games are being tossed around for 25, 50 cents, maybe. And we'll be able to look at garage sales again, and people are selling them. But I mean, right now it is a rough time. Just I mean, unless you're looking really hard, you're not going to find anything.
Yeah, even on Craigslist, at least around here, it's kind of tough. And people want like $75 for a Wii, and it's like, what? It's a Wii.
Yeah, I will admit that Facebook groups have been interesting. Like there was somebody selling like a PS3 with 10 games for like $150, and they were decent games. I mean that was good.
Yeah,
Uh, two Game Boy Advances, $10. You know,
not bad at all.
so that's kind of I think it might be a little bit of an untapped resource is getting on Facebook groups and kind of watching those and saying, hey, telling people there, hey, I'm looking for games. So, because a lot more people use Facebook than they do Craigslist, I think, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I think Craigslist has kind of fallen out of favor, and it's not as popular as it was.
No, not at all. You might only see 20 or 30 posts from any given day and just, I mean, uninteresting. Whereas, like, even in the town I live in, little dinky town, nothing cool here, nothing to do. There's still 5 or 6 different groups that sell just random junk. And I mean, you could scroll through that all day. And I mean, it's just to the point where you almost can't keep scrolling because it keeps updating and messing up your browser a little bit because posts keep coming on it. Just
Right.
so yeah, kind of an untapped resource, I guess. Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
So we kind of got off topic.
a little bit, and then we're almost at 2 hours now.
Right, right. We gotta kill this.
Yeah, we gotta wrap it up. We got
So
way into some certain details, but I mean, it was a good episode.
right, right. So I mean, even though yeah, some details were more than others, as far as like the NES, we went into a lot of detail, but then we kind of skimmed over one thing on another, But I mean, we got to try to keep the time down, and this is already, as you said, almost 2 hours.
Yep. So we might want to break this up into two separate episodes.
Ugh, that'll be weird editing.
Yeah, definitely weird, but you know what? We might have to do it just so we can keep our listeners at bay.
Yeah, them two listeners.
Might be three today.
Maybe as we post, I know we'll get more. So, uh, anyway, if you want to follow us on Facebook, of course you can go to Facebook, look up the Classically Retarded Show, YouTube, Classically Retarded Show, Podomatic, same thing. What else are we on? I mean, we got Google Plus, but
We are on VHS. We are on Laserdisc, and we're on GameTap.
what about Betamax?
Betamax only in certain locales, mostly the Montreal area, but we are expanding our Betamax listener base.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. I can't think of anything else to say. I don't know about you.
I probably could, but I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I agree. So let's wrap this bad boy up.
Yep, yep.
So, of course, keep watching. Of course, like, comment, subscribe, and just come to the Facebook page. We're always willing to throw some comments up there to anybody that's wanted to talk about games. Post some stuff. Give us some info. we're always there trying to tell you about the best deals that are coming out. I know I like to always post stuff about free games and things like that. I absolutely love that. I don't know about you. You might just want to hoard all that shit. I don't know.
I'm not much on hoarding, but I don't come across a lot of the freebies that you do.
And mine are all by chance, so I don't know. But
Right.
I
But
like to.
we're also in the prime season right now with the Black Friday sales going on soon.
Right, right. So there you go. You know, of course, if you see any deals, you can post it there. You want to just meet some new gamers, come there. And we're just looking to grow the channel, looking to grow the show, Facebook page, you name it. So thanks for listening and watching, everybody. This is Classic Game Freak,
And retired by choice.
and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Yep.
Cheers.
Peace.
Can't get enough gaming talk from just this episode? Then head on over to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/classicallyretardedshow. There you can keep up to date on gaming news, sales and deals we've spotted on the interwebs, giveaways, podcast updates, as well as anything and everything retro.